Welcome back to the show. We are very excited to welcome our next guest. This man is the Chief Creative Officer at Barco Escape.
He's also the resident futurist at 20th Century Fox. How do I apply for that job?
Yeah.
We're so excited to have Ted Schilowitz here with us. Hey,
we might have some openings, you never know.
Hey, I'm interested.
Do you need an assistant futurist?
We might have a need for an assistant futurist. In fact, we have a whole team of people that are kind of on the curve with us that are figuring things out.
So the futurist, we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about Barco, because you have some really exciting stuff happening with Star Trek Beyond this weekend. So let's talk a little bit about the title futurist, because to me, this seems like a really cool, sexy, mysterious job, and I want to know what the day-to-day entails, because to me, the idea of being a futurist means you're sort of a think tank about the future, and you go, listen, 20th Century Fox, I think the future is going to have way more robots than this, so you need to put more robots into this movie.
Sort of. It's a little more pedestrian than that. I often refer to myself as a glorified lab rat. I'm a guy who's constantly, and we have a bunch of labs. One of our labs is called the bunker, the VR bunker, where it's like this little staircase. And
I want to live in the VR bunker.
Can we rent it?
Yeah.
You can rent it. You can come over and visit.
Great.
We'll have you over to visit.
That would be
and
awesome.
When you talk about it, it sounds like we built the Bat Cave. You know, it's like the most amazing place in the world. When you go to it, there's a bunch of technology inside a room, a bunch of VR and AR stuff, a bunch of monitors, a bunch of future thinking stuff. But it's just a dark room. We're really comfortable with that. But then we're sort of spread out all over the lot. We have a big theater on the lot where we experiment with stuff, with the Barco Escape stuff. We have an area in the tower, you know, the Nakatomi Tower,
Sure.
that is called the Fox Innovation Lab, where I work
that's where
with
you clone Bruce Willis over and over again to repeat
among
Die Hard.
other interesting
Perfect.
things.
So you are not, it's not that you are advising filmmakers about what the future is going to be to put in their movies. It's that you are developing technologies to expand and improve the ways we appreciate movies.
They all kind of dovetail together, but it's more the second one. It's more looking at what is around the next corner, like what's around the bend here that may become important, relevant, and extraordinarily valuable for the entertainment industry. Sure. And what we've done over the past few years since I've kind of taken on this very odd and interesting job is really driven Fox into the forefront of the conversation of being the studio that is the most forward-thinking, the most what I call lean forward as opposed to lean backward, not afraid of taking risks, not afraid of figuring things out, not afraid of seeing what are the things that people are working on in the dark corners that are going to become things. And interestingly enough, the timing of me joining Fox when I left this movie camera company, Red, when I retired from that, and my one of my friends at 20th Century Fox is the president of post-production there, who's part of this little posse of pioneers, his name's Ted Galliano, said, come and be the futurist at the movie studio. And just, you know, you kind of have your eyes and ears on a lot of things, and you've always been sort of on the forefront of this stuff, helping build stuff and start companies and figure things out. Would you be willing to do that for the movie studio and essentially help guide us a little bit into what's be relevant?
Right, what's next?
And the timing was really interesting because a lot of this VR stuff started to happen right around that time. So I was very early on with the Oculus guys, very early on with the Valve team and the HTC team and the Sony team and the Samsung team and Microsoft and HoloLens and this small group called ODG that's doing next-gen AR stuff that we're working on. And those are just the highlights. And there's tons more out there that we're experimenting with. But all day long, I just experiment and have these various things on my face or in an immersive cinema experience with Barco. The first two movies we did with Barco Escape were two Fox movies, the first two Maze Runner movies that were really successful. And now, of course, we're on the cusp of Star Trek Beyond and Escape.
So let's talk a little bit about Barco Escape, because I think a lot of people probably don't know that, A, it exists because there's so few theaters that can play Barco Escape content. And then on top of that, you know, what you guys have planned for, it's a little bit like IMAX, where it's sort of a cinematic experience you're just never going to get at home. Right. And so it's one of those things that you have to see to sort of appreciate. But for those people out there who are not familiar with Barco Escape, explain a little bit about what that is and why it's so intense as a film, as a moviegoer to see it.
So you're right. So the footprint is relatively small. It's a new format. So those, you know, a generation from now will be telling our kids and our grandkids, remember when there were just like 30 or 40 theaters around the world that you could see this in before it became the thing, right? And so that's where we are now, which is kind of a romantic time to be involved in something new and exciting. But in terms of what it is, what you will see when you go to a movie theater, so it's a 3-screen experience instead of a 1-screen experience.
Okay.
You're of course familiar with going to the movies, and the movies essentially from when movies have been created up until now, 100 years, have basically been something like this, some geometric form, whether it was a square,
box
rectangle,
in front of my face.
or a really big box in front of your face.
Sure.
Which are very exotic and great. And IMAX is where Barco does all the underlying technology for IMAX projection, and so we're a big fan of that and collaborate with them a lot. This is something even more different and more special than that for an out-of-the-home experience. So instead of the movie just being in front of you, it actually surrounds your periphery, and we bring you into certain scenes of the movie when it's appropriate to really take advantage of this. Let's go all the way and not just be watching a screen, but actually kind of inside the experience.
So the films actually have to be shot with this in mind, right?
Not necessarily. In the case of Star Trek, it's actually because it's such a CGI, VFX heavy movie, all of the, there's some augmented stuff with cameras, but most of the material is actually created in post-production in VFX.
Oh, interesting.
With all of the space battle scenes and all the epic action scenes and all the stuff that you know. So all the things you expect when you've seen a regular screening of the movie.
Right.
Imagine all those key moments when it's not just this, it's this.
Is
all
this
around
something that later on can be then applied into a VR environment
Yes.
so that you can then be looking around you later
Yes.
on at home?
Yes. In fact, it's very often referred to, Barco Escape is very often referred to in the trade, now that we have a trade for this stuff, as bricks and mortar VR. We know that
interesting.
people like to socialize. We know that people like this. They like real connection, and they like to sit with their popcorn and their candy and enjoy the experience. And VR is, somewhat isolating experience, although we're working on social in
Expanding
VR as
that,
well.
right,
So
of
Yeah.
course.
that's a bit of I'm telling you one story, but there's actually another story there too, where VR will become a very social thing, which is
sure.
part of why Facebook would be interested in having VR around as a technology.
Sure.
But within the theater environment, this is sort of the most immersive, most VR-like experience. And we know that with modern audiences, once you get a taste for something that what we call breaks out of the rectangle, whether that's in something you're going to put on your face or some sort of glassware or some sort of theme park style experience, you want more of that. You say, I want something that separates from the home experience. I can get really good big screen at home.
Yeah.
I want something different. I want literally something that's more like I went to a theme park, but I could go every Friday night, every Saturday afternoon, every Sunday morning with my family. Don't have to spend hundreds of or thousands of dollars to get on a plane and go to Orlando or Los Angeles from far away, but go to my local multiplex and have this kind of immersive theme park style experience in a movie.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think that's one of the things the movie industry has struggled with, I think, a little bit historically, as televisions have gotten bigger and cheaper and higher def, and we have seen more and more streaming content come into homes. People go, well, why should I go to the movies?
correct.
Why I can get that on my 70-inch TV that I bought at Best Buy last week for $2,000, And I think it's really interesting that you guys are always looking for the what's next of bringing people into the theater, not only as a like you said, a social experience, because that's always when I like to go see movies, where you go in on opening weekend and people are cheering and they're just having a great time. People who are really into that movie are there to see it.
It's the buzz, right? Yeah.
It's the buzz. You get to experience that, the highs and lows of with everybody else. A very collective social experience. Really interesting. But you're also kind of now having to not only give moviegoers that experience, but also the visual experience to go with it, and that make people say, hey, I want to come back to this, or I want to do this more often, because it's not something I can get at my house.
I know that, going to see a Chris Nolan movie in IMAX, there are those moments where it
it
and
expands
you fall
up.
into the screen. Is that kind of the same experience here? Is that there are certain scenes where it'll just envelop you?
Yes, similar, but way more intense than just going from here to here. Because
Yeah.
here we're just expanding the square, expanding the rectangle, which, by the way, I love, and it's part of the
Sure.
inspiration. There's nothing wrong about all these other experiences.
Just instead of
right?
expanding vertically, you're
we
going
go
this way,
whoosh,
way this
all
way.
around you, right?
That's
Right.
so.
So it's essentially a 180 view all around.
There was a moment at Comic-Con a few years ago where that was done in Hall H.
Yes.
Is that similar?
Similar, and they're doing that again. You're going to see some stuff around movies, because in areas other than a movie theater, other than a multiplex, where you can expand that vision and you have the budget to expand that vision, like a theme park, like a big convention like Comic-Con, this happens. Big trade shows do this all the time. Like if you go to the E3 gaming show, you'll see they'll set up
that big 360.
they'll set up a whole
right?
bunch of Barco projectors and they'll do this kind of thing.
Sure.
Our mission was to take that to everybody. So not just people that work in the industry, or if you're lucky enough to go to Comic-Con and be in Hall H and wait 8 hours to do that experience, right? Which
Yeah, if you're
is
lucky, 8 hours.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm lucky to be working in the industry and I can go and do that stuff. And I'm so impressed with those people that are so committed to that entertainment. Those are our core customers that want to see Barco Escape.
Sure.
They don't want a normal experience.
Right.
They want a special experience, right?
They want it to see it the best possible way in the most fun environment.
And what we're doing is expanding that footprint to every city around the world is the plan. So we have a little over 30 theaters now for Barco Escape worldwide. So essentially what I like to say is if you're a fan, super fan, you can get likely anywhere in the United States now. You can get on less than an hour flight and find a Barco Escape, or likely drive less than an hour to a couple of hours, which people will easily do. If you live in any major population area, give or take, you're going to find one within easy striking distance. We have 2 in LA, we have a couple up in the Bay Area in Northern California, we have 1 in Palm Springs area, we have a bunch in Texas. We have 1 in Minnesota. We have, and all over the U.S. If you go to a website called Ready to Escape, so Ready the number 2 Escape, or just Google Barco Escape,
it'll give you
you'll see a listing, and then you can click and go to your local theater and buy tickets, and it'll tell you which one, because it'll be the regular version, the IMAX version, the big screen digital version, and then the Barco Escape version.
Is the end goal to have the entire film shot like this?
It's one of the goals. So we're.
Or do you think it works better as shorter moments?
I think it's project to project. Just like any other sort of creative entity, there's no one right way to skin the cat. There's no one right approach to it. So with Star Trek, it's a little over 20 minutes, those key battle action scenes, which totally lend themselves. And trying not to give anything away, but the big climax scene in the movie with what happens there?
Yes.
So imagine that visual experience. It's just
cool.
we were doing our final QC, what's called QC quality control screenings last night at 3 a.m, because these things are coming in hot, right? Like finishing up the last day with the team from Bad Robot, and it's just insane, right?
When that music kicks in, I imagine if it's all around you, it's got to be pretty
at 3:45 a.m. last night, I'm sitting there going, "This is the best thing." There's only 5 of us.
You're
in
like,
the
I'm up at 3:45 in the morning.
A bunch of technicians and the producer.
This is worth it.
It was
That's awesome. If you could retcon any movie into Barco Escape, what would you do?
Well, we're working with Jerry Bruckheimer. And we've talked about redoing Top Gun and Escape, which would be really interesting.
That would be awesome.
We've been talking to Michael Bay. We've been talking to a lot of really big A-level filmmakers. We've had them all into the theater. They've all seen stuff. All the major studios are interested. Because they're exploring.
Well, it's so immersive, And the other thing is, as you said, everyone's looking for that next thing, and it's really interesting to see sort of Barco taking the lead in terms of saying, "Hey guys, like we have got this locked down. We're experimenting on everything, and we feel this is the way forward. This is the really cool thing that people want."
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I said we would tell you that we're not the ones that know all the answers to any of this, right? It's a creative process. We take in lockstep and hopefully fall one half a step behind the creators, behind the people at Bad Robot in this case, and behind the people at Fox in the other cases, where we want to make sure that the technology drives the story, not the other way around, right? The story drives the technology, not the technology driving the story.
Sure.
And it's really, really important. And when you see Star Trek, you'll see how that works. The other thing that's really critical, I think, is that we're taking this and putting it in normal movie theaters all around the world. So there'll be 100 by year's end, and then we move to thousands in a couple of years. And it's just one of those formats that you're like, this is the movie we're going to go see.
Right.
We're working, as you were asking about production and stuff, we're working on 2 new movies now. One that's shooting in South Africa called 24 Hours to Live, with Ethan Hawke in it, and it's a big movie. They're shooting big action scenes. And a movie up in Canada called Recall. There's a bunch of cinemas in Canada with Cineplex theaters and Imagine theaters. So Canada's also got their share of
all
Star
those
Trek
different
fans
sort of experience. Yeah, totally.
Yep. So we're all over. The footprint's quite large.
I can't wait to see it in person myself. It sounds really, really cool, and it's.
I get to go see it this weekend. So
you're going to see it in Barco.
I'm going to go see it in Barco Escape.
Awesome.
I'm very excited. I can't wait to see it.
Well, you have to let me know.
Ted Schilowitz, everybody, thank you so much for being
My
here.
pleasure. Thank you.
Where can you already said what's the website again for the Escape?
Ready to Escape.
Ready to Escape with the number 2.
Or just Google Barco Escape. You'll find it, and likely you're within striking distance of getting to one of these theaters now.
Great.
And before the next couple of years are out, there'll be one in every neighborhood.
There'll be more, you guys. So that is it for our interview. Thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll send you our resumes for those assistant futurist jobs.
Sounds great.
We'll be right back, guys, with more Tomorrow Daily, so stick around.